Cheryl's having a rough morning.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
My hair's still wet. Yeah, I was refreshing. Okay, we're ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Old Lady Hour with Lorrie and Sheryl. Today's episode is going to be really special. We have Charles Scribner from the Black Warrior Riverkeepers. He's the executive director, and we have so much to talk about. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you so much, Lorrie. I'm really glad to be here.
And you just mentioned that this is probably one of the only times you've been interviewed by someone's mother, because Liz Lane, back in the pandemic times, had a live broadcast, Instagram live with you and about the Riverkeeper.
That's right. Your daughter Liz, whose gallery is in the Birmingham area. At the time it was in Homewood, now it's in Hoover, but we've had lots of collaborations, but one of them was indeed a Instagram interview. Mm-hmm. And so this is definitely the first time that I've had a parent and a child both interview me on separate occasions, same topic. So I really appreciate it. She's been a fantastic partner of ours, as have you.
Well, and we've just, we care about the river, and obviously that's what you're all about. So can you just kind of give us a description of the organization and kind of some of the activities?
Yeah, Black Warrior Riverkeeper is a nonprofit organization that's based in Birmingham, but our mission is to protect the Black Warrior River and its tributaries. So we're protecting a full 17-county area in central Alabama called the Black Warrior River Watershed. And a watershed is all the land area that drains to a particular body of water. So you're always in a watershed, no matter where you are on the planet. In fact, you're always in multiple watersheds. Like right now, we're sitting in downtown Tuscaloosa. So obviously we're in the Black Warrior River watershed. For example, if it rained here, the rain runoff's gonna end up in the river. But we're also in the Mobile Bay watershed, because the Black Warrior River flows into the Tom Bigby, which flows into Mobile Bay. So the pollution up here not only affects the river in this area, and also Tuscaloosa's source of drinking water, Lake Tuscaloosa, but it also ultimately affects Gulf fisheries and the beaches people like to visit for things like spring break. And so there's always someone downstream, and we're trying to be good upstream neighbors and help people also be good upstream neighbors by getting involved in volunteer projects such as cleanups, as well as reporting pollution to us so that we can investigate them as a Riverkeeper organization. And when necessary, we even sue polluters. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's good. So so it's some legal matters. There's probably a lot of observation. Now, how much do you go out on the river itself?
So I personally don't go out on the river as much as I would love to, because as executive director, I'm more doing things like, on a good day, a podcast interview with Lorrie Lane, but generally, I'm at my computer or maybe making a public speech or in a meeting. But we are not just called Black Warrior Riverkeeper. That's not just the name of our organization. We actually have a full-time paid riverkeeper on staff. So Nelson Brook, his job title as riverkeeper means he's patrol person and spokesperson for the 17-county Black Warrior River watershed. So a big part of his job is patrolling not only the river itself, after which we're named, but also all the tributaries. So creeks that flow into it, lakes that are connected to it, like Lake Tuscaloosa and Smith Lake and Lake Harris and Lake Nickel, for example, backup sources of drinking water in this area. He's going out there in the patrol boat when it's a large stretch of water, like the river itself or a lake, or in smaller tributaries, he might be going out in a canoe or even on foot, and he's taking water samples of known pollution sites to take back to a lab in Birmingham, an EPA certified lab where we can analyze those water samples, see what's being put in our water, and if it's a significant and ongoing threat to some combination of public health, wildlife habitat, or recreation, or a combination of the three, then we can sue polluters under the Clean Water Act or the Endangered Species Act or a number of other statutes and force them to clean up their act.
Okay, and so what have been what's a victory that you've had as a riverkeeper in stopping some terrible pollution?
So we're going on September 25th of 2026 that we will turn 25 years old. So we're going on our 25th year. So we've had a lot of victories over the years. And it's a little bit of an exercise in kind of saying, it's sort of like pick your poison, literally, because all of these different legal victories or PR victories in some cases are addressing different forms of poison that could be affecting either public health or wildlife habitat or recreation. So it's difficult to say. I would say my favorite victory was stopping the Shepherd Bend mine.
Okay.
Go into that in a minute, but part of the reason why I would choose that over some of the more courtroom-based victories is because the Shepherd Bend mine opposition was a 9-year battle. So it was really an exercise in stick-to-itiveness. So what was happening there was back in 2006, we found out that there was a mine proposal by Drummond Coal called the Shepherd Bend Mine. And it was going to be right across the Black Warrior River's Mulberry Fork, from where about 200,000 people in the greater Birmingham area get their drinking water every day. Again, just taking a step back, that's part of the reason why our office is in Birmingham, even though Birmingham's not right on the river itself, is Birmingham's the largest population center in the watershed.
Sure.
And again, we're concerned with not just threats to the river, but threats to things like drinking water. So the Black Warrior River's Mulberry Fork in Walker County delivers water to 200,000 people in Birmingham. And this coal mine would have been discharging wastewater 800 feet across the river from the Birmingham Waterworks intake facility. So literally right across the river.
So if you like coal-flavored water, there you go.
That's right. And the waterworks said they could treat any of the pollution, but in order to do so, they would have had to invest in more filtration.
Yes.
And that gets passed on to the ratepayer. So essentially, this company would be imposing a tax.
Right.
Actually, on more than 200,000 people, the tax, so to speak, in terms of higher water bills, would have gone to 600,000 people because in the greater Birmingham area, all the ratepayers share in multiple drinking water intakes. So there's some on Smith Lake, there's some on Inland Lake, the Mulberry Fork. And so this would raise rates for 600,000 people. A lot of people are even getting their water to the east of us from the Cahaba River, but they too would have had to pay for the increased filtration. And so back in 2006, one of the things that we noticed was that the property that this coal mine would have been on was mostly owned, in terms of land rights and mineral rights, by the University of Alabama system. This was actually good news because the coal mining company had already gotten all of the pollution permits that they needed from Alabama state government. So there really weren't effective ways to stop them through the administrative route in terms of challenging their permits. But we knew that the University of Alabama system, being a major research institution that's trying to recruit top faculty, students, and donors from all around the country and the world, cares about their image, as they should. And so we started a 9-year campaign of pressuring the University of Alabama system not to provide access to Drummond Coal for their land or mineral rights. And what we wanted was the university to come out and say that we will never provide access for land and minerals for such a uniquely inappropriate coal mining proposal.
You would think, right.
And they never got to that point, but what they did, which was really helpful to our opposition, was they retreated. At first, so back in 2006, the University of Alabama system was actively putting out requests for proposals in the media saying, we've got this property and we're looking for a quote unquote responsible mining company to set up a coal mine there.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but I genuinely don't think that the university realized how uniquely inappropriate this particular location was, that it was going to discharge wastewater 800 feet across the river from a major drinking water intake. In fact, throughout this 9-year battle, we engaged several top scientists, biologists, mining experts from other states that are more famously associated with mining, such as Kentucky and West Virginia. And these scientists testified that they had never seen a coal mine proposal that close to a major municipal drinking water intake. So you had the water utility against it, you had obviously the Riverkeeper organization against it, but also some really fascinating non-traditional partners. For example, the new breweries.
Okay, right.
Because they didn't want their product to be diminished, and they didn't want their water bills to go up.
Sure.
So even rival breweries that normally were not collaborating but rather competing with each other were suddenly doing joint press releases with us, holding hands and saying, we got to stop this mine proposal. The Birmingham City Council passed a resolution against it. The UA system schools, including not only University of Alabama here, but also UAB and UAH passed opposition proposals against it. And so after 9 years, the mining company, Drummond, just gave up and put a press release out at late afternoon on a Friday saying that they were no longer pursuing their permits for that mine. So that was one of the greatest environmental victories in Alabama state history. But what the university did that was helpful was they retreated from that active position of seeking a buyer of their land and minerals. And once we started putting the pressure on them in traditional media, on social media, through a coalition, through these different proposals in city government, they saw that they were under a lot of pressure, and so they retreated to this awkward middle position of we have no current plans. And they just kept saying we have no current plans for 9 years, while we kept saying stop the Shepherd Bend mine for 9 years. And so eventually the mining company just stopped waiting around for access and gave up.
So that's good. You outlasted them, which
That's right.
which is hard to do because a lot of times the company has resources and individuals, or even I'm going to say, an organization like the Riverkeeper. It's like constant vigilance.
That's right, but I would just never grow tired of protecting our drinking water. So it was actually quite easy for me to say stop the Shepherd Bend mine multiple times a day for 9 years in a row, because I believed in what I'm saying. I think sometimes, what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But in this case, it worked. So
that's good.
I'm here to maybe give a counterexample.
That's really good. What led to your passion of keeping the river safe?
I think it really goes back to childhood, being raised in a Christian family in New York City, which may seem like a bit of an oxymoron to your Alabama listeners, but I grew up in a Christian family, and just very generally, I remember from a young age this concept of love your neighbor as yourself. And it seemed really obvious and logical to me that if we're all made out of water, despite our differences. So for example, no matter what you look like, no matter whether you're rich or poor, or urban, rural, suburban, black or white, what political party you're into, all of us need clean water to survive and thrive. And it's one of the few commonalities across our species. And so to me, if we're going to love our neighbor, and if that truly means to love all neighbors, not just the people that live next to you or that think or look like you, but literally everyone. I believe we're all made in the image of God, and I know scientifically that we all need water to survive. And so I felt like a really efficient and effective way to love my neighbors would be to protect their water, because it's something that we all need. But what does that look like as a career? I mean, because this thought originally was coming in preschool years.
Oh, wow.
And then as I got older, the environmental movement was something I was vaguely aware of when I was in elementary school. But growing up in New York City, there wasn't a lot of nature directly around me. We didn't have a backyard.
You did have a lot of river.
That's true, but the Hudson River, for example, in New York, it's more. If you're living in Manhattan, it's sort of more the barrier between you and New Jersey.
Right.
It's not really.
It's
you don't think of it as this.
It's a thing to cross over.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and so I didn't think of the Hudson nearly as much as I saw it. I didn't realize its importance. And also in terms of the environmental movement, my elementary school had recycling bins, and I always thought, okay, well that fits into this general sense of we need to help each other out, we need to recycle. But I never thought that environmentalism would potentially be a career, and partly because I thought it was just for scientists, and that wasn't really my academic passion. I was more interested in English and history. And so I wasn't a scientist, I respected it, but I didn't feel like that was going to be a career direction. Or I thought it was really, what gets publicized the most is sort of like radical extremism, people chaining themselves to trees, or even, threatening violence and things like that.
Throwing soup on paintings.
Exactly. And that never resonated, because I don't feel like that's loving your neighbors either.
Right.
That didn't resonate with me either. So I didn't realize that this was a career thing. I kind of thought that, growing up in New York, and then when I was in high school and even early on in college, that I'd probably have some traditional career where hopefully I'd make a lot of money, and then I could donate to environmental causes. And that would be the way that I helped out, in addition to doing, just everyday things like recycling or good consumer choices. But then halfway through college, I read a book called The Riverkeepers, and it was actually about that Hudson River that I had just thought of as a barrier. And it was about a grassroots nonprofit organization cleaning up the Hudson and not only turning its fortunes around significantly, but creating a blueprint of watershed protection, the Riverkeeper model, that really boils down to two main factors. Number one, having that full-time paid investigator and spokesperson for your body of water. So that's our Riverkeeper, Nelson Brook. And he's really the perfect Riverkeeper for the Black Warrior because he grew up hunting and fishing on it. He's an Eagle Scout. He's been our Riverkeeper since 2004 and just has such a good, keen eye for detail. He's an amazing photographer, by the way. So that's a good way that we can collect evidence in addition to the water sampling. The second facet of this Waterkeeper model that was really impactful on the Hudson and has continued to be to this day is the original Hudson Riverkeepers used litigation when necessary to fix problems. And litigation not just against what you might think, a factory or a coal mine, like we were talking about in Alabama. Up there, they were suing some of the car companies, they sued Exxon, they sued the power company, but they also sued government entities that were violating pollution laws, dumping their sewage into the Hudson River. And I think this is a really cool aspect of American law, where a non-governmental organization like Riverkeepers, Waterkeepers around the country, we're not government, and yet we can use the power of the law to sue the government.
To hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Right, and what, for what is in the public interest, which there's a lot of competing interests, and I think some people think, oh, just throw it down the river, it goes away. Right. But of course it doesn't. So, yes.
I would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Awesome.
Who's responsible for cleaning up the messes that are found? And I'll give you a small example. I live out in West Tuscaloosa County, and
Buell.
and the Sipsey River is out there. And one time I was out there and...
Oh, wow. So you're right. You're in Tuscaloosa County, but you're in that small part of it that's not in our jurisdiction, because the Sipsey River is a different watershed.
True?
Yeah. It's a tributary of the Tombigbee, like the Black Warrior, but they don't intersect. And then just to further confuse you, the Black Warrior River doesn't have a Sipsey fork. That's what Smith Lake is.
Yeah.
But the Sipsey River, minus the word fork, is a separate...
tributary to
just
the
to confuse everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That puts a different spin on that. But anyway, one day I was out there taking pictures, and there were a bunch of tires just dumped in the little swampy spot there. It's like, what do you do about that?
Well, it's a few things. If you catch someone in the act, it's a criminal offense. The state of Alabama does have anti-littering laws, but I think they're rarely enforced because in some areas there's, maybe crimes that are more urgent.
Yeah.
For law enforcement to address. But are we back on the...
No, I just turned off my mic.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So we're not recording that. Yeah, so it's a criminal offense, but then one way that we deal with it at Black Warrior Riverkeeper is volunteer litter cleanups. And that's definitely something I want to talk about.
Yeah, and
because that's a way that more people can get involved. Like, I've been talking more about the Waterkeeper model and how it's the patrolling and the litigation. That's always going to be the centerpiece. This is definitely something I want to say. It's always going to be the centerpiece of what we are and what we do. But I realized over time that didn't create a lot of avenues for everyday people to get involved. And we're doing this work for everyone, then we should have avenues for them to get involved in it too. So the cleanups have been awesome.
So do you want to talk about the volunteer cleanups? I know my daughter Liz was involved in some, and she found it really meaningful just to be out there. I think you were at that point, kind of off from a cemetery maybe?
Yes.
And I think my son Charles was also involved in one of them. So anyway, but go ahead. It's a great program.
So we've been talking about how the Waterkeeper model started on the Hudson River, which happened to be my hometown river, and how the combination of on-water patrolling and litigation when necessary, first of all, turned around the Hudson, and then that local blueprint was then replicated grassroots style on rivers, bays, and lakes all around the country, now all around the world. So the original Hudson Riverkeeper spawned over 300 waterkeeper organizations across the world. There are now 10 of them active protecting Alabama waterways. So in 2018, we started Waterkeepers Alabama to help connect and support our local grassroots waterkeepers here. And I would be grateful and blessed to work for any waterkeeper in the world, but it's particularly exciting to be at Black Warrior Riverkeeper because Alabama is not just the best state in terms of football, but also the best state in terms of freshwater biodiversity. So we've got more species of freshwater fish, turtles, mussels, crayfish, and snails than any other state. And I think this model of the waterkeeper work of patrolling and litigation has really helped improve the water quality in the Black Warrior River, as well as rivers around the country. However, in our 20 years, well, it's almost been 25 years since Black Warrior Riverkeeper started, I increasingly realized that while we are doing this work for everyone, as I said, everyone is made it mostly out of water. Everyone needs clean water to survive and thrive. So literally, like, our target audience is everybody.
Right.
And yet, there weren't a lot of avenues for everybody to get involved in our work. And we want to be engaging. We want to be a grassroots effort. It's not just about the 6 staff members of Black Warrior Riverkeeper. This is a community effort. It's our water, so we all have to protect it. And I realized that, our patrol boat, for example, doesn't have seats for the 1 million people that live in the Black Warrior watershed, let alone the hundreds of thousands or even millions more that visit the watershed. I mean, think about game day in Tuscaloosa. Right. How many more people come to Tuscaloosa even from other states? And also the litigation aspect. You can't just have people show up to the courtroom. So, like cheerleaders or getting involved in that aspect of the work. We have some law students at the University of Alabama and at Cumberland at Sanford get involved, but I really wanted to get more people active in our efforts. And so in 2020, we started a volunteer litter cleanups program. And I didn't know how long that would last or how popular that would get. But we started having some litter cleanups, particularly in Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, because those are the 2 main population centers. And we've got a lot of good partnerships with the universities in both. And we found that it really took off. The number of schools, individuals, families, for-profit businesses, nonprofits, churches, even some corporations that we don't always see eye to eye with on pollution, but they wanted to get out there. And one of the interesting things that I found about litter is despite all these, I think, deepening political divides in our state and in our country, everyone seems to hate litter equally.
Right.
It's kind of a uniting.
They kind of should, right?
Yeah. I mean, everyone, I've never met someone that wanted to live amidst litter other than, Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street.
Maybe.
And I'm pretty sure he's not a real character.
So that's true. That's good. So how many, and I've seen pictures from some of these cleanups, and it's a lot. It's a lot of trash that they're getting out.
We've been averaging the removal of about 25,000 pounds of trash a year from the Black Warrior River watershed ever since we started this program. So last year we passed the milestone of 150,000 pounds of trash.
That's crazy.
With this program.
Yeah.
And that has an ecological impact, especially as we learn about things like microplastics getting in our waters and even in our food chain, because they get in the fish and then we eat the fish.
That's right.
At least for now. And so,
so far.
Yeah. So, certainly we're proud of the ecological impact of removing all that trash, but I'm also proud of the fact that we're getting so many people involved, hundreds of volunteers every year. And a lot of them are repeat cleaner uppers. So they come to our cleanups in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham, and we've branched out now. We're trying to have more in Blount County and around Smith Lake and just about anywhere. Our jurisdiction goes all the way down to Demopolis.
So it's like if someone wants to do something, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, sometimes we hear from individuals, like one student at the university, and they want to get involved in cleanups, and we have ways that we can point them towards solo cleanup opportunities, but we also let them know about our calendar of upcoming public cleanups where we can get them involved with a group activity. And I think that that's good too. I think there's some ancillary benefits beyond just the removal of trash. It's creating more community and having these amazingly diverse groups come together. So you might have a bunch of Boy Scouts coming together with a church, with a corporation, and a Birmingham city councilor, and they're all doing the cleanup together.
And that's great.
Creating more community.
Yeah, that's part of what we're hoping to do here. If you hear the bangs in the background, I believe that's coming from the construction next door. I don't know if the mics are picking it up, but that's what that's. I was like looking around, but anyway.
Well, Tuscaloosa's on the move, but you've got a lot of great neighbors. I love Christ Episcopal Church over there. I've visited that a lot. And then on the other side of your wonderful gallery here, you've got the Tom Beckby store.
And let's talk about that, because you are going to have an event at Tom Beckby on March 5th.
Yes, Thursday, March 5th at 1 p.m. We're going to have a lunch and learn. So the Tom Beckby store right on University Boulevard. I think the most important landmark to point out where it is would be the Lorrie Lane studio. But for others, it may be that it's right across the street from Embassy Suites.
That's right.
On University Boulevard.
Which has a couple of Lorrie Lane
Paintings, yeah,
in
it
there.
does have some of my landscapes in there.
Well, actually, that's funny you said that, because the genesis of this interview was not only that, your daughter Liz interviewed me years ago, and we've had a great partnership, but also I had gone into the Tom Beckby store about a month ago just to meet Amelia, their manager, who signed me up for the Lunch and Learn. And while I was walking around the store, just to get a layout, it's beautiful.
It's very nice. It used to be, for Tuscaloosa folks, it was the downtown pub.
That's
for
right,
a
and
while.
they used to be a partner of ours. They sold paper fish through Sweetwater Brewing Company,
That's
and
really
then we
fun.
would get the proceeds from the paper fish. So people would buy a fish, write their name, put it up on the wall of downtown pub, and Subs and You,
Yep.
which was their sandwich shop.
And if you've been around long enough, it was a Chinese restaurant way back.
So that predates me, but I got to Alabama in 2005. But yeah, it's cool to be able to have a partnership with it was formerly a bar and a restaurant, and now it's an outdoor apparel store, for hunters and fishermen, which is definitely one of the many target audiences that we're focusing on. But again, we're focusing on everyone. So everyone is welcome to come to Tom Beckby on Thursday, March 5th at 1 p.m. for the Lunch and Learn. I'm going to speak about Black Warrior Riverkeeper. There'll be a PowerPoint presentation, some maps, and they'll have some refreshments there. But definitely, if you're interested in fishing and hunting, it's a great store for apparel and gear for that. But while I was in there talking to Amelia, their manager, who's just terrific, I noticed some beautiful artwork around the store. And I said, that looks really familiar. That looks like some art that I have in my house, actually. And she said, oh, that's Lorrie Lane. And I said, yeah, I have a Lorrie. The most important piece of art in our den is a beautiful Lorrie Lane picture of the Black Warrior River. And I pointed that out, and Amelia said, oh, well, I grew up, I was really good friends with Liz Lane, and Lorrie Lane's new studio is right behind the store. So we just spontaneously walked over there, and I got to tour this amazing place. By the way, if anyone's not been here, it's really a wonderful place. It's kind of a foggy day today in Tuscaloosa, overcast, but this is a happy place to be in the gallery. So come check it out. And if you come to our Tom Beckby event, this is just right next door.
We could do both. And in fact, we have a little crossover too with our sculptor, Steve Davis. I think he has an alligator, a sturgeon made out of metal that's over at Tom Beckby right now.
I was there when Amelia transported it
right
from your gallery to Tom Beckby. But, now we're getting really personal. I have a sturgeon tattoo.
Okay.
Because the sturgeon is the logo of Waterkeeper Alliance, which is the international organization of which Black Warrior Riverkeeper is a independent local grassroots chapter. And so Waterkeeper movement was started on the Hudson, and back at a Waterkeeper Alliance international conference that I attended in 2006, I got the sturgeon tattoo.
So how did you get all the way from the Hudson to the Black Warrior?
So after I read the Riverkeepers book and realized that this Riverkeeper movement was actually maybe a career thing, that my passion for loving my neighbors and for helping the environment might actually become a career, because it's a grassroots movement. It was open to so many diverse viewpoints and professions. So the original people that started Hudson Riverkeeper were a collection of military veterans, commercial fishermen, recreational fishermen, homeowners, lawyers, some scientists as well, business owners. And so I thought, there's room for me in this too. And so after I read the book, it changed my life, and I contacted the folks at Hudson Riverkeeper and asked if I could be a volunteer intern that summer while I was about halfway through college. And they said yes, and so I really enjoyed that experience. Well, while I was falling in love with the Waterkeeper movement, I was also simultaneously falling in love with a girl from Alabama.
Ah, that's sweet.
Who was up north. Yeah, she was up in college with me. Her name's Elizabeth. And now her name's Elizabeth Scribner because we ended up getting married. And she lured me down to her hometown, which was Birmingham. And as I was learning more about the Waterkeeper movement and how it had spread from the Hudson, I came to realize that. So the year that I read the Hudson Riverkeeper's book was 2003. But I found out that in 2001, Black Warrior Riverkeeper had been founded.
Okay.
At the time, Black Warrior Riverkeeper was just the second waterkeeper organization in Alabama. There was already Mobile Baykeeper. But Black Warrior Riverkeeper was the second in Alabama and was actually the 72nd waterkeeper in the world. Now there's over 300 on every continent.
Okay.
Except for Antarctica. So the movement has grown. I think it's a proven one. But it was becoming increasingly clear that Liz and I were going to get married and that we would end up living in her hometown of Birmingham. So I got to know the folks at Black Warrior Riverkeeper, which was really brand new at the time. I graduated college in 2005, and they offered me the job of development director, mostly fundraising and outreach. And I took that. Absolutely loved it. We got married in 2006, and now we've got 4 kids in Alabama. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. It's a great place to raise a family, and it's a great place to protect water because, again, Alabama's #1 in freshwater biodiversity. We also have more miles of navigable waterways than any other state. But our state government is notoriously lax in terms of environmental enforcement. So that just shows the value of having these non-governmental groups.
Right.
Well, so we appreciate it. And I mean, I think a lot of people, if they knew what you were doing, they'd even appreciate it more. So that's what we're hoping to get the word out.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, and to get more people involved. So we will never stop being centered on that sort of organizational DNA that got the Waterkeeper movement so successful, which was the patrolling and the litigation. But again, just wanting to get more people involved. Our cleanups program has really grown to the point where right around Christmas, I actually announced that we grew our staff. Starting January 1st, 2026, we now have our former part-time independent contractor, Mary Ellen Murray, is now full-time staff as engagement coordinator. So she's taking leadership over the cleanups. And then Katie Holmes, who was our outreach coordinator, is now program coordinator. So she's got a broader set of responsibilities, but she too is still involved in the cleanups program, for which she has just provided so much leadership over the last few years. I like to get out there on cleanups, and we just like to get as many people as possible involved. So I would just recommend that people go to our website, blackwarriorriver.org. And then if you'll see on the top of the page, there's a bunch of blue buttons, and one of them says support us. So blackwarriorriver.org, then go to support us, and there's a volunteer tab. Go on there and you can sign up for our volunteer email list. It's a newsletter, just goes out every first of the month, just one email, and it gives a calendar of events of that month of mostly cleanups, but other service opportunities, and then some fun things too, like the March 5th event at Tom Beckby.
And we'll have this all on our YouTube. Sheryl she puts lots of information on that visually, so you can see that there as well, and be really a part of this. I just want to say, because I'm old enough, and Sheryl and I are old enough to remember some really terrible things that happened on rivers way back. One was a river actually caught fire.
That's right, the Cuyahoga River.
The Cuyahoga River.
Yeah.
It was so polluted with oil runoff or whatever, I'm not sure exactly what it was, that
Yes.
it literally caught fire.
In my home state.
In your home state of Ohio. So I think that when we were young, that was very startling, and really made me very aware of how fragile our environment can be by how we mistreat it. And I also grew up in western upstate New York.
Love Canal?
Love Canal.
Yeah.
And I was not in the Love Canal area, but not that far away.
Right.
And so, for the young folks who don't remember that, it was a lot of just industrial pollution that got was it in the aquifers? I can't remember all the details, but definitely it was affecting people and they were all getting sick, and they'd built housing right over all the pollutants. And so, it's really, I think we have a tendency to be out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, we can just dump something here. Now we're not looking at it, but it affects everyone.
That's one of the things that we're trying to bring about with this watershed model, is the fact that even if you don't see the river, now of course in Tuscaloosa, which means Black Warrior and Choctaw, both the city and the river are named after Chief Tuscaloosa. So the river is a bit more in your mind's eye here than it might be in other parts of the watershed because it's flowing right through town. But even so, if you're downtown like we are now, if you look out the window in any direction, you're not seeing water, but what you will see is storm drains in the street, and rainwater is going to push any pollutants into those. So we're just as concerned about what's going into storm drains as we are the river directly.
And we can see what the river looks like after a big rain.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a lot of churn, there's a lot of silt, which is problematic, especially for like oxygen levels for fish.
Yes.
And sometimes it's foamy, which like you're like, what's that?
And yet I don't think you've ever seen it catch fire. So that's that's progress. So I mean, bringing up the Cuyahoga River and Love Canal, which happened before my career, but those two events were two major national stories that prompted Congress to pass statutes like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. And there was this thing back in the day where the Democrats and the Republicans got together for the common good and passed legislation like this. And one of the great things that they did when passing the Clean Water Act, for example, was they inserted something called citizen enforcement provisions. So that said, when your local or state governments or federal government weren't enforcing pollution laws to protect people and wildlife from pollution, citizens, when they had standing, which is to say if we have a nonprofit organization with members that live in or recreate in affected areas that have been affected by pollution, that we can sue under the Clean Water Act to fix some of the problems that we've been talking about in this interview. But not every problem can be addressed with a lawsuit. For example, to some extent, our waterways are affected by sort of death by a thousand cuts, litter here and there. And so that's where the cleanups come in as well.
So that's good. Yeah, I mean, some of the bigger issues would be like sewer overruns, which happen, I think it's in the Potomac. Well, I think there was a large one in the news of the Potomac.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert was actually joking about a week ago. He had my friend Dee Niox, who's the Potomac Riverkeeper. He was on there because they were addressing a major sewage spill in the Potomac, which it's colder up there, so it had frozen, but they're worried about what's going to happen when it unfreezes.
Right. So yeah, I mean, and that's what I like, the idea that you say, we're all connected by water, and the rivers connect us all as well. And so you can't section yourself off. You cannot not be part of it. So some people are not as aware of that. I mean, there was the example of the Flint water problem, which was, preventable, but there was some cost-cutting measures which ended up making things a lot more expensive and, affected children's health in particular. So it's just like a lot of it's just awareness.
Absolutely. So you're part of the solution here. Well, and I'd like to say too, I think a problem with the environmental movement from a PR standpoint is that I think environmentalists are sometimes seen as kind of being on their moral high horse. Like it's like we're the good guys and they're the bad guys.
Or a lot of it, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah, the nanny aspect, but also the sort of sense of like we're holier than thou. And I just personally, and I think for Black Warrior Riverkeeper, we don't see it that way. I think everyone's part of the problem to some extent. We're all polluters.
Sure.
There's not an us versus them. I mean, I drove here in a car, and so I can pat myself on the back, I guess, that it's a hybrid, but it still has a pollution impact. It still has a carbon footprint, so to speak. And so we can all be part of the problem, but I also think we can all be part of the solution.
We can do better, and I think that's part of it. So,
and there are a number of ways that you can be part of the solution. I think the environment's being destroyed infinite number of ways, but there are also an infinite number of ways that we can help it.
And there are things that have been better, so I think that's
Yes.
also important to point out.
Yeah,
that
no fires on the Black Warrior River
that was
itself.
really good.
But there are things people can do. They can, first of all, as a nonprofit organization, we need to be able to keep the lights on so people
Sure.
can donate to Black Warrior Riverkeeper. But if they're not in a position, maybe they're a student or they don't have the funds right now to donate, we've got so many volunteer opportunities on our website. And then just spreading awareness, whether it's sharing this podcast on your social media channels to increase awareness that where your drinking waters come from.
And so that's all good. I want to shift gears just a little bit because you mentioned about there's an art connection here about with your parents. Your mother's an artist, and you said something about you started telling us a story about your father and authenticating your Reuben. So that would just sound like a great story. So if you want to share it a little bit.
At Black Warrior Riverkeeper, I guess you could say that part of what we're doing is crime fighting because we're addressing
right.
environmental violations. But my dad was a book publisher, but he had his PhD in art history, and so he got involved in some crime fighting of his own back in the 90s. A priceless Rubens painting was stolen from a museum in Spain and then trafficked to Sweden, and then it somehow ended up in Miami. It was this international art crime, and my dad was flown into Miami in a sting operation as the art expert to authenticate the painting, basically to say whether it was an authentic Rubens. And in fact it was, and so the art thieves were arrested, and but in his day job, my dad was a book publisher. So getting back to that book, The Riverkeepers, he was actually the one that signed up that book. So
there's a famous publisher called Scribner's. Is that?
That was my family's company, and those are my ancestors. But I'm the first Charles Scribner in a row, so I'm the sixth in a row. But I'm the first one that didn't work in book publishing.
Okay.
Decided to come down here. The first one to live in Alabama too.
Okay, I was just like, well, that is like the famous publisher.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, that's kind of
but maybe
coincidental.
Yes. So
that would be a whole different podcast, about
Right.
Hemingway and Fitzgerald. But
Yeah.
but I guess the most relevant book that Scribner's ever published was The Riverkeeper. So I'm very proud of that.
I love how much that changed your life,
Absolutely.
and directed your life. So books, publishing,
Yeah.
they're all a part of this.
It was due to another artist. So I was at dinner halfway through college with my parents, and I was, again, going back to my Christian upbringing, I always had a sense that I wanted to give back in some way, that I wanted to be in service or of service. But I didn't know if that meant the military or the Peace Corps. That's a pretty wide range.
Right.
And so I'm telling my parents, I don't, and by then we had long since sold the family publishing company. So it probably wasn't going to be book publishing. A lot of my friends in college were going to Wall Street, but I really wanted to give back. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And I'm kind of just having this crisis and telling my parents. And my mom said, well, Dad published this book called The Riverkeepers about cleaning up the Hudson. You've always seemed interested in the environment. Why don't you read that? So that was the night that I read that book, and
Wow.
It changed my life. But yes, you're right. My mom is also an artist. Her specialty, she used to do a lot of landscapes, watercolor, but recently she's been doing puppy portraits.
Okay.
And so that was a little business that she started, puppy portraits. Unlike you and Liz, though, I inherited zero artistic talent. Like, I can barely sign my name, make it legible.
But you appreciate art.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love being in the studio
So,
right now.
yeah, so part of art is like, we like people who like to look at it. So that is, if everyone did art, it'd be great, but we also need people who like to see it. So,
Yeah.
so there's that.
And actually, getting back to the Hudson, think
Yeah.
about one of the most famous.
The Hudson River School.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, and I, part of what, just like on my personal note, one day I don't know, one day, but through a series of thinking about what I was painting, I'm like, I'm thinking about the river. I see the Black Warrior River all the time. And so I'm like, let me just do a whole series of paintings. And I just started painting lots and lots of, both the Black Warrior, the Lake Tuscaloosa, they're all connected. And so I have lots and lots of these. And I keep painting the river just because I'm just kind of in love with it here. It's not, it's not the most like spectacular sights. There's not like, you know, huge cliffs, although, well, there are some cliffs, but I just think it's a beautiful river. Now, just a little bit about the navigable part of it. It is not the same river that it used to be.
Absolutely.
So a lot of our rivers have been engineered into what they are now. So
It's not in its original pristine state, but I do think it's still beautiful, and
it really is.
we protect the parts that have been channeled with just as much enthusiasm as the free flowing parts that are more in the northern section of the watershed. And you know, you really bring a lot of positive attention to the river with these beautiful paintings. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. I own one of them, and it's in a really prominent part of my house, and I love looking at it. And I remember hearing a study a couple of years ago. Harvard School of Public Health, I believe, put out a study that being close to nature, or especially near water, is good for your mental health. And of course, we all knew this, but they in some way actually quantified it. It could even just be passively being near. So of course, outdoor exercise has its own benefits because you're burning calories and you're using your cardiovascular system. But even if you were just sitting, observing nature, that this has health benefits. And I think that even carries over to looking at your pictures of nature.
I agree.
You know, I'll look at, I mean, I see one over here. Y'all need to, anyone listening to this needs to come to Lorrie's gallery, but I just like to sometimes zone out and look at her painting of the Black Warrior River, and it's very soothing.
well, and thank you. I mean, and we are close to what I thought. The city's done a nice job. The city of Tuscaloosa has done a great job with the river walk. And so you can kind of just sit there by the river. They're repairing a section now, so be careful.
So there's going to be the Western River Walk too.
And the Western River Walk, and it's just like, it's going to be miles of connected walkways.
9 miles? I
It's an
think?
awesome resource.
Yes.
Well, a lot of our public cleanups are along the
right.
River Walk, and then also the Northport River Walk on
Right.
the other side of the river. It's just a beautiful area, and we've had events also overlooking it. So Hotel Indigo, their rooftop
Right.
bar, we have an event up there just about once a year now, and that's a fantastic venue as well.
That's great. Well, I think that we have talked a lot about water, and we know so much more now. So thank you so much, Charles, for being here.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I also just want to say thanks to you and to your daughter Liz Lane for using art as a platform to promote nature and also to give back
Sure.
to
Yeah.
conservation efforts. Liz has been a very generous donor to Black Warrior Riverkeeper, and y'all have both been part of gallery events to promote our work and raise funds for it. I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. Well, anyway, we are excited about the event coming up March 5th, and then you'll be back in Tuscaloosa, and we'll put all of this information on our YouTube so you can see that. Remember to like and subscribe, and I always forget to say that. I'm looking at Sheryl. Yep, I've got to promote this too.
Yep.
So, well, Sheryl, you know what time it is.
It's time to watch our shows.
It's time to watch our shows. Bye.